Hello, everybody. Welcome to this work-life harmony workshop with Minaa B. This is the second session of Reimagine's three-part series, Pain to Purpose, Redesigning Our Careers and Lives. My name is Andrew Engel. I'm Senior Programmer at Reimagine. For those who may not know, Reimagine is a nonprofit organization catalyzing a uniquely powerful community, people of different backgrounds, ages, races, ethnicities, faiths, people of no faith, all coming together in the hopes of healing ourselves and the world. We specifically support each other in facing adversity, loss, and mortality at our own pace, actively channeling life's biggest challenges into meaningful action and growth. Last week, we kicked off the series with a variety of speakers, coaches, and authors who touched on their personal experiences of grief, trauma, and loss. We talked about death, divorce, COVID, family caregiving, corporate restructuring, you name it. We talked about experiencing this U-curve in life, but often those U-curves help us to reassess what matters most. For example, a workplace that's grief-informed and trauma-informed, and that prioritizes people over profits, that's something for sure that matters most. I hope you can all register for next week's event. I'll be pasting that link in the chat. Okay, we only have an hour, so I'm going to hand this over to Eric Solomon to share a bit of his story before we move into Minaa B's workshop. Eric serves on the board of directors of Reimagine. He's the founder and CEO of the Human OS. Eric helps businesses and their leaders articulate what they stand for and how that translates into accountable, measurable, real-world actions. I'll be pasting a link in the chat so you can learn more about Eric, as well as Minaa B. Eric is going to talk for about 10 minutes. He's going to share a story, and then he'll be introducing our special guest. So thank you. Eric, I'm going to hand this over to you.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to see all of these people kind of pour in from all over the place. So thank you so much. So as I said, we'll get to the meat with it, and you'll hear from Minaa, who's going to be taking us through some incredible workshop material. But first, I just thought I'd set the stage by, I wanted to share my story with you because it's pertinent to this session, I hope. So I hope it'll resonate. I may look like I'm a put together individual that came from some kind of privilege in the world. And I assure you, I was raised by wolves. In the best possible way, with all due respect. My parents were, first generation Americans. I was raised by a single mom who worked 3 jobs and, bless her, but had no interest in being a parent whatsoever. And I realized that my mom and my dad lived in the same town, but I realized at a very young age that the only way that I could get out of the situation that I was in, and it was not going in a good direction, was to figure out how to get educated. So I poured the early part of my life into doing that. I got myself into school. Again, I was the first person in my family to do this. And I immediately after college entered a master's and PhD program in all things. This was back in 1999. It was in artificial intelligence and machine learning. So something that I had no idea would actually be a consumer-facing thing in any way, shape, or form as it is today. But I ended up, due to the path that I was on, I was attached to government funding, which all that meant is I had to go very quickly through this program or I wouldn't be able to graduate. So I ended up being, I'm 46 now. I was 25 when I got my PhD. And it was not because of intelligence, I promise you. It was because of necessity. I had no choice but to go through. But I thought all I knew in life was school. So I ended up thinking I'm going to be a professor. So I went to do postdoctoral work thinking I was going to be a professor. And I did this at the medical school at UCSF in San Francisco, looking at how big tobacco had used big data to get kids hooked onto smoking so we could figure out how to counter market. And my advisor at the time rightfully said, you don't know anything about marketing whatsoever. You know about big data, but not about marketing. I'm going to introduce you to somebody. And I got introduced to this guy who subsequently said, you're not an academic, you could come work for me instead, because you'll never get a job anywhere that you want to live and you'll never make any money. Come to the dark side of business and come work for me. So I started on my path in this career that I didn't really feel like I had control over, but that I soared at quickly. So I was at a couple of different advertising agencies. And then in 2010, 2011, I had an opportunity to co-found a team at YouTube, of all things. And it was kind of, I had to pinch myself at the time thinking, wow, this is what it's all about, climbing this corporate ladder. And I started building this big team. I had a team of 70 people, and I was there for 4.5 years. And then I got an offer I couldn't refuse to move out to New York, where I am now, to be the first ever person to help build the Spotify brand. So for those of you that don't know Spotify, incredible music streaming and podcasting service. I'm a big music person. This was a dream job. But, all of our paths get disrupted in ways that we can never, ever anticipate. And mine got disrupted in a pretty big way in 2016. It was about 6 months after I started this job, came back from a work trip. I was in Stockholm for a leadership team meeting, and I landed back in New York, and I got a call that you never want to get. It was from the chief of police in the hometown where I grew up, telling me that morning my father had been murdered. And I'm telling you this because it was like a plug was pulled on my universe. My father was far from a saint. He was married 6 times. He was from the South Bronx, a fish out of water in California. But my life was turned upside down. Not only that, a criminal investigation was opened, and I was told not allowed to talk about it. I'm a communicator by nature. So for me not to be able to talk about it was excruciating. So I did what a lot of people do when they're faced with this kind of grief. And I poured myself into work for distraction. And on my resume, it looks like the most impressive time of my life. I went back to Google as a marketing director. I became the head of marketing for Instagram. And then I became the chief marketing officer of a company owned by Walmart. And this was all while this investigation was opened. But again, the universe has a way of closing these chapters for us. I was on vacation in Mexico about 5 months into my CMO job, when I, out of the blue, got a call from the investigator again on my dad's case. It had been open 2.5 years at that point, who said that due to lack of evidence, all charges had been dropped, so I'll never know what happened. And I tell you, there's nothing more to snap you into oblivion than hearing that something that you're hanging that hope on doesn't come to fruition. But it changed my life. Before I even got back to New York, I called my CEO and I said, I am quitting. I am done. I'm done playing this game. I'm done chasing the wrong ladder. This is not who I am and what I'm about, and I need to spend time figuring it out. And I've been in technology in some way, shape, or form since 1995. We understand that this computer and this Zoom call couldn't happen without an operating system that underlies it. Without that OS, none of this happens. In a similar way, I didn't understand what my own human OS was, my human operating system. What's driving me? What am I about? What am I trying to accomplish in this world, and how am I go about it accomplishing it? So I quit and set upon the work of building and installing my human operating system. And I loved that work so much that I've made it my career. So my company's called The Human OS. I'm writing a book about the Human OS. I speak about it, and this is my life's work. But this is just one story of how to take moments that derail us and turn them into moments of triumph, including things like being on the board of this incredible organization. So with that, I mean, I want to move on and, introduce Minaa, but I hope that that story resonates in a way that you can be derailed and you can make triumph out of those moments of being derailed. So I'll pause there and do nothing but share my gratitude for you listening to that story and for taking part in this, incredible experience. So Minaa, I want to introduce you, and then I'd love to hand it over to you. So for those of you who are not familiar with Minaa B, she is a licensed social worker, a writer, and the author of Owning Our Struggles. She's the founder of Minaa B Consulting. This is a mental health consulting practice that helps organizations develop psychological safety, which is the #1 driver of team success, and become basically more mental health inclusive. She's an expert in her field. She's been featured in so many media outlets, including Red Table Talk, Peace of Mind with Taraji, and many, many more. She, as if that's not enough, she sits on the Mental Health Advisory Committee for Wondermind, a mental health fitness company that was co-founded by, Selena Gomez. No big deal, right? But, pretty big deal. And so you can learn a lot more about Minaa. You're going to hear from her, but order a copy of her book by visiting www.minaab.com. That's MINAAB.com. So with that, I would love to hand it over to you, Minaa, to show your magic and take us through what you do.
Thank you so much, Eric. I also want to just start off by saying thank you so much for your vulnerability and the time that you just took to share your story with us. It was truly a gift, and thank you for the work that you do. So as you shared, thank you everyone for being a part of this amazing workshop. I'm having slight issues with sharing my screen. I'm trying to do that for you all right now. But today's workshop is really all about achieving work-life harmony. And I'm just going to jump into it until I'm able to share my screen. And so what we're going to be talking about today is understanding how we can achieve work-life harmony versus the concept of balance in our lives. A lot of us have been taught this concept that we can achieve work-life balance. And one of the things that I really want us to focus on is understanding that balance itself literally means to give something equal distribution. That's not always possible. And so as a result of that, when we're trying to give things equal distribution, I'm just going to pause here. Can people see my screen? Just to get your feedback.
Minaa, you want to hit present, I believe, when you get that.
Gotcha. So here I'm realizing when I hit present, it is not allowing me I see on my end, it's pausing the sharing. So I am just going to keep my screen like this. I'm so sorry, you all, but I hope this is visually appealing. This is what happens when we work with technology. Okay, thank you, Annie. So as I shared, work-life balance is a myth. Balance means to give something equal distribution. And when you are attempting to give things in your life equal distribution, 20% to work, 20% to my children, 20% to my relationships, what you're also saying to yourself is you don't really understand priorities. Everything cannot get equal distribution in your life. I'm quite sure taking care of your family is more meaningful than work. For some of you, work is more meaningful than doing certain hobbies or activities. And for some of you, your hobbies mean more to you. Another thing is understanding our energetic capacity. Sometimes when we're working and so many things are demanding our attention, I might feel so depleted that I only have about 20% left of me to give, because my day took about 70% of me, 80% of me, maybe even 100% of me, and I am running on empty. And so instead of us trying to achieve balance and to give everything equal distribution so that we're keeping the scales even, we have to get very comfortable with recognizing the scale is going to tip a little. The scale is going to tip a little in order for me to maintain my well-being, and that is okay. And so what does it mean to achieve work-life harmony? Work-life harmony, or the concept of work-life integration, which is another term, is really learning to find fulfillment in your life by blending work, values, and all of the things that bring you fulfillment, and recognizing that all of those things can be interconnected. We don't have to treat them like separate silos. I can be working an 8-hour shift, and during my break, I can practice a meditation. During my break, I can set boundaries and say, I don't check emails during my lunchtime. During my break, I can say, these are the different things that I need to do to recuperate or to rejuvenate myself. Even while I'm working, I might have to set some boundaries with my boss or colleagues and say, I don't have the capacity to take on more duties the last 10 minutes of my shift. I realize that you're sharing so much with me and I have a full plate of tasks that you gave me from last week. Is there a way that we can accommodate each other? Right? And so that is what it means to have work-life harmony. You can bring boundaries into the workplace. You can bring boundaries into all areas of your life, including work, so that you can feel satisfied and fulfilled. By choosing not to, what ends up happening is we can find ourselves feeling depleted, and this is where burnout comes in. We find ourselves feeling empty, numb, drained, and honestly, a level of dissatisfaction with our lives, because we're trying to give everything, every ounce of our energy, time, and effort. And now we're realizing my cup is empty, I feel depleted, and I have nothing else to give to myself because I'm so busy pouring out, that in the midst of me working, in the midst of me doing, in the midst of me recognizing I'm busy, I have a full plate of things, but I still have to choose myself at some point. And so I want us to pay attention to the different ways that we are trying to achieve work-life balance. And I want you to recognize the different ways that trying to achieve balance has now left you feeling empty, depleted, and really unsatisfied with life. So pay attention to the development of burnout, because we don't just wake up feeling burnt out. When you find yourself in a chronic state of emptiness and numbness, understand that this has been building day by day. Burnout happens as a result of, one, starting with acute stress. Acute stress can occur when there's maybe 1 or 2 different levels of responsibilities or pressures that we have within a relatively short period of time. An acute stressor can look like, I have this deadline for July 24th, and because it's right around the corner, I feel really, really stressed out. But you might find that once July 24th comes, I feel a sense of relief. I feel alleviated of that stress. I feel like I can decompress now because the project is complete. The task is complete. Chronic stress, however, happens when July 24th comes, that task is complete, but you find yourself feeling activated still. You still find yourself in a chronic state of worry. You still find yourself in a chronic state of depletion. And that might be because not only do you have a deadline for July 24th, you have a deadline for July 27th, August 1st, August 3rd. And so you find that because there is a poor distribution of time, there is a poor level of learning to integrate how to erect certain boundaries, you might find that the stress is just ongoing. I never feel alleviated of this stress. Even though there's just one thing that I have to focus on, I find that my body tends to be activated on a recurring basis. And as a result of that, you might find yourself in a form of prolonged distress. You find yourself feeling emotionally depleted. You find yourself feeling numb. You find yourself struggling to maintain social connections. So it's not just now with work. You find that stress is leaking out to other areas of your life. I feel too tired to play with my children. I feel too tired to hang out with friends over the weekend. I feel too tired literally just to sit down and watch Netflix because my sensory overload has taken up so much space that I can't even look at a screen. I am depleted. I am exhausted. And then I look at my calendar and I realize I have all of these things that I need to do. And so one of the things that we have to really assess and ask ourselves is, one, within this level of stress, where are we in these different stages? Am I finding myself having multiple moments of acute stress in my life where there's just one-off scenarios where I have these deadlines or I have these really pressing situations or circumstances. I feel really stressed out, but I find myself feeling rejuvenated after that stressful situation, or is it always ongoing? And one of the things that you need to do is pay attention, not just to your mental and emotional state. I always tell people, pay attention to your body, because your nervous system is going to get activated when you are in a state of stress, especially prolonged stress. So often we're so used to focusing on my mood. How do I feel today? I feel empty. I feel sad. I find that there's a loss in pleasure. There's a loss in things that I found interesting in the past. My executive function skills are suffering, so I'm having problems concentrating. I'm struggling with maybe problem solving. I have decision fatigue all the time. But one of the things I also want you to pay attention to is this section, which is your somatic and physical symptoms, because the body keeps the score. When you are chronically stressed or chronically in a state of burnout, you might find that you are always experiencing headaches. You are always experiencing migraines. Pay attention to your sleep patterns. You might deal with insomnia. You struggle to fall asleep at night, or you might deal with hypoinsomnia, where you're always napping, you're always fatigued, you're always tired. The moment you sit down on the couch, you're like snoring, right? Like you can't even stay awake. I also want you to pay attention to your eating, because sometimes when we're so burnt out, we might not realize that we're paying attention to so many different tasks. And this can really happen when you have ADHD on top of feeling burnt out. You are so task oriented and trying to manage those tasks to alleviate stress that you are no longer eating. You find yourself living off of one meal. So pay attention to the ways that you invest in your body. Also recognizing, am I getting sick frequently? Because stress also impacts the immune system. So I want you to be paying attention to the different ways that burnout and stress can manifest mentally and emotionally, but like I said, also somatically. So the good news is there are ways that we can manage stress and burnout. And the best way to do that is to focus on the 8 dimensions of wellness. These are the 8 dimensions that pretty much make up who we are as people: our physical health, emotional, intellectual, spiritual. Understanding that these 8 dimensions are interconnected. The nervous system is paying attention to the different things that cause you stress and burnout. So your nervous system is going to react in particular ways where, as I shared earlier, you might have mood disorders, mood imbalances, but your nervous system might also say, those gut imbalances, those headaches, these are different things that are impacting us. And so a holistic way of taking care of burnout and taking care of stress and just managing all of the different pressures we face in life is by paying attention to the 8 dimensions that make us who we are. And so I'm going to walk you through these different dimensions. The first one is our physical health, the vessel that we live in. I always tell people the same body you experience hurt in is the same body that you heal in. Please do not neglect the things and the messages that your body sends to you, because your body is always reacting to external stimuli. And your body is always going to be reacting to things that are happening internally to you. Your body is always going to be your first responder. Your body is always going to alert you, hey, physically we feel sick. Your nervous system, hey, we're feeling in a state of anxiousness. We're ebbing and flowing between hyperarousal, which is a state of anxiety, a state of panic, or hypoarousal, a state of depression, feeling understimulated, feeling fatigue. And so your body, right, because it's the first part of you that gets injured, mentally, emotionally, physically, one of the things you want to be doing is asking yourself, what are those holistic things that I can be doing to maintain my physical well-being while having all of these different priorities? The number one gift I believe our bodies give us is the gift of our breath. I live in New York City, and I live about an hour to 20 minutes outside of Manhattan. The traffic is always hectic, and I am the number one person in my life. When I am driving, you will see me in the driver's seat taking a deep breath every 5 minutes because of traffic, somebody cutting me off, pedestrians deciding that they're just going to run in the street because they think they're invincible and they don't see a car coming because this is New York, right? And so the number one thing that helps me get regulated when my body goes into a quick state of hyperarousal, where I'm getting irritated, I'm getting frustrated, as I go, this is a lot. Work is a lot. Being a New Yorker is a lot. Dealing with my children is a lot. And sometimes my breath is going to be the thing that guides me. And so that is how you can tap into the physical dimension. A lot of times we think taking care of our physical health only means I need a gym membership. And one of the things I encourage you to do is expand what it means to take care of the body. The next one is our social well-being. We are people who are wired for connections, use people, engage with people, co-regulate with people. The same way a lot of us, when we're frustrated, we want to call up a friend so that we can vent. That is an act of co-regulation. That is you saying, my nervous system is so dysregulated, I need to call someone so that their nervous system can help regulate mine. And so one of the things I want us to be paying attention to is when we're working and we're managing all of these different tasks, how can we use the power of support? How can we overcome this fear of thinking we're a burden and just speak up and say, I need help. I need support. I'm struggling. I'm suffering. I need guidance. I need to outsource. Can you provide? Can you help? Can you support? And so one of the things that we have to be willing to do is recognize, in the midst of us working and being busy and doing, are we neglecting the power of community? Are we neglecting the power of support? Is our ego in the way where we're like, you know what, I don't want people to judge me if you call up that friend and say, you know what, remember you said you were going to babysit? Or when I'm at work and my boss or my manager is always saying, let me know if you need help, and I feel too ashamed. I feel too prideful, right? And so I want you to be thinking of the state of your relationships and ask yourself, how am I utilizing co-regulation and a social support system in this workspace and in the state of busyness that I am in to help maintain my well-being? The next one is your emotions. And I find that this is the number one dimension a lot of people tend to be in tune with. We focus on our feelings a lot. I feel sad, I feel mad, I feel angry. But one of the things that we fail to do sometimes is we fail to, one, recognize the different forms of stimuli we're exposed to that is inducing that emotion. And sometimes we feel a certain thing and we stop there, instead of saying, what is the solution? If I feel this thing, is there a boundary that I can draw? If I feel overwhelmed with my work tasks, have I spoken up? I said this earlier, right? I feel this thing, and sometimes we say, because I feel it, I'm stuck in it. Instead of saying, my emotions are a compass, and they help me in the process of understanding, where do I need to set a boundary? Because if I am always in a constant state of stress, that might also mean that I am giving too much of myself to something, and I am accepting too many requests. I am allowing too much into my space. I am taking on too much. And so if I'm finding myself having this emotion over and over and over again, How can I allow this emotion to draw me toward my boundary? So I want you to be paying attention to your emotional dimension. Your intellectual health is very important. As people, we are always learning and unlearning, and that is what that dimension means. You're a part of this workshop because you want to learn something. You're a part of this workshop because maybe you need to unlearn something. And so you're making space for more information. You're challenging certain biases that you have. You're making room to grow and evolve by expanding the information you expose yourself to and recognizing that knowledge is powerful. And so I want you to be thinking of these 4 different dimensions. Now, to add to those dimensions, your environment is extremely important. Your environmental health can look like engaging in nature, paying attention to what's happening to you outside, but the #1 environment you're always exposed to is your home environment. And so ask yourself, how is your home environment a reflection of your mood? How does your home environment support your mental health and well-being? How does your home environment help you in nurturing your nervous system? What are some things in your home environment that can help you have a sense of harmony, especially for those of you who are still working remotely? Practicing caring for yourself in your home environment can say, I'm only going to work in this designated area. And after that, I'm done, right? My laptop stays at my desk. I don't bring it into the kitchen. I don't bring it into the bathroom. I'm paying attention to my environment and making sure I'm creating an atmosphere for my well-being and for my nurturing. Now, occupational health, this is what we're talking about, achieving work-life harmony, recognizing that all of these different dimensions that I just shared can be integrated into the workplace. I can build healthy connections with my colleagues and my managers and my leaders. If I'm working from home, I can figure out how does maintaining my work environment help me achieve my goals throughout the day. Lastly is financial and spiritual health. Your financial health is super important. A lot of us know the phrase, money cannot buy happiness, and I'm a true believer that that phrase is incomplete. I believe, yes, money cannot buy happiness, but money does grant us access to things that make us happy. You need money to go to therapy. You need money to see the doctor because a lot of us have a copay. You need money to buy yourself lunch. You need money to take care of yourself, to clothe yourself, to pay your rent or your mortgage. Money is important. Okay, what we're not going to do is gaslight people in the society into believing that we should not be working toward financial prosperity. That is okay. It is okay to want more. And a lot of us also need to be realistic about how money is impacting our burnout, how money is impacting our stress. It could be the way we use our money. It could be that we feel like we need to make more money. And so when you're thinking of wellness, mental health and physical health and spiritual health, financial health is deeply tied to that as well. And then lastly, your spiritual health. Your spiritual health is really that thing that helps you have purpose in life. Back in 2020, I work a lot with organizations on tackling employee burnout and increasing mental well-being in the workplace. And a lot of us became familiar with the term quiet quitting. And when I was working with organizations, I told them the #1 thing that you're facing in the workplace is purpose. Many jobs can't give their employees purpose. That is an inside thing. And I might wake up and realize my purpose isn't tied to my work. And so when we saw the mass resignations and people leaving the workforce and a lot of companies trying to figure out what can we do to engage our people, will help them tap into their purpose. Because at the end of the day, people are waking up and realizing there's a lot more to life besides work. And even if I love the work that I do, I have other goals outside of the things that I do for a living. I have goals with my family. I have goals with my own personal development. I have goals that aren't tied to the workplace. And that's what you're competing with. You can give me the PTO and that's beautiful. You can make all of these changes, but purpose is what matters for me. And that's what I'm waking up for. And so what we're going to do here is have a mini breakout session. For the sake of time, we're not going to go into breakout rooms. What we're going to do here is I'm going to pause for about 5 minutes to give you some quiet time to reflect on these 3 questions. And after the 5 minutes, I'm going to invite some of you to share over the mic your answers to the questions, or you can also share them in the chat. So let's take about a 5-minute break here, and then we will regroup. The questions are in the chat, and I'm just going to read the questions out loud. So the first question is, describe an environment or natural setting that makes you feel calm and rejuvenated. Why is it significant to your well-being? The next question is, how do you find meaning and purpose in your life? Can you share an experience that made you feel connected to something greater than yourself? Lastly, the last question is, reflect on the importance of community involvement and how it contributes to your sense of belonging. So at this moment, I am going to open the floor. So is there anyone who feels comfortable unmuting yourself and sharing? And it's okay if you don't. You can also write your comments in the chat. But is there anyone who wants to answer one of the questions that maybe about, I'll say about 2 people?
My name's Allison. I'm happy to share.
Thank you.
Want me to start? Okay. If you don't mind, I'm just going to be efficient and go through all 3 and have that be food for thought for everyone. My first one, and I love these questions. Thank you. Environment or setting. I would say one thing that's new that I learned through the pandemic is doing nothing, just sitting wherever you are and having that quiet time, letting your mind and your body really connect. It's been such a therapy and such a great learning just to have our minds stop because we are so busy and so active. I also love being in nature. That answers everything, gets you clarity, different perspectives. And I'm very, very passionate about being near, on, or by the water. That says everything. During the pandemic, I started paddleboarding, and it is the greatest calm and the greatest setting I've ever been in. So encourage that for everybody. Even if you're just by the water, it gives you a whole different energy. In regards to how I find meaning and purpose in my life, definitely I found after these questions was being altruistic, helping and supporting, and especially loving other people. I am not shy to tell people, even if I just met you, how much I think you're amazing, I appreciate you, and how much I love you. I think it's so important for us to emotionally share the great qualities about people. And it gives so much, and it brings smiles on people's faces. I also used to jump, like I do a lot of jump photos and things. And I would see how much elation that would bring everybody. You could have a good, bad, medium day. And if you jumped, it just took all of that away and you had just this feeling of joy. And that was special. And then also, I like to do good deeds every day. And then sharing the best experiences that I have with loved ones who also I know appreciate it too on an everyday basis. It's pretty cool. And then lastly, the importance of community, which I think is so strong and powerful, especially as we age, is feeling connected. And in 2 ways, right? It's in thinking differently so that we hear, learn, grow, expand, and find out about other things we didn't know, and especially learn about other people's perspectives, because that is such a greatness that I think is a value for us as we continue in life. And then also sharing again. I'm a big sharer. So whatever we can share with each other that is helpful or is just even something good or even not so great, right? But sharing truly is caring. And then it also shows how much support we have with one another, and it makes you feel connected. So hopefully that's helpful, but those were my responses.
Thank you so much, Allison. Is there one more person? I think I saw Jen SC raise their hand right after Allison had one up. Are you still interested in sharing?
I would love to, thank you. And thank you for all that has brought us to this moment so far in this Zoom session. It's been great. So an environment or a natural setting, for me, the majority of my land here in Hawaii is left wooded. And every day, at least once, often multiple times, I go down and walk in the woods. And as soon as I get down into the woods, the sounds of people fade away, and I hear the birds and I hear it quiet, and all the stress of the day just falls off my shoulders. It's so rejuvenating. And the feeling of being part of the woods, that I'm an integral part of this environment, but without all the mental stresses of being human. So it's what re-regulates me. If I get stressed out, I go in the woods, and breath is a huge part of it. And just the freedom of movement, being down, surrounded by only nature, is incredible. So meaning and purpose. For me, the driver is to help people self-actualize in whatever way that means to them, and to whatever degree I can. So whether it's, like Allison says, just when I go to town to get groceries and seeing somebody who I can say something to that will spark meaning for them, that will acknowledge something in their own lives that they care about, some way to connect in a meaningful way, whether it's about little things, somebody who obviously took care and how they dressed that day, saying, oh, you look great, or somebody who is struggling to reach something from a top shelf and gets it, and I can say, wow, that was great, you were so brave, you were so strong. So to touch into other people in a way that acknowledges what has meaning to them. For a year, I was a social worker at our local hospital, which had me as part of the care team for each of the patients. And my job as a social worker was, again, to connect and help people get what they wanted. I didn't want their blood. I didn't want anything from them. I just wanted to give them what they wanted or needed to the degree that I could. So it was a great feeling of being part of the team, but also in this totally positive way. It was so much fun. People were so relieved. You don't want something from me? No, I just want to help.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Jen. What I really like about what you and Allison shared is the different concepts. And I think what's really important for us to remember is taking care of ourselves is subjective, right? And as a therapist and as a social worker myself, it's important for me to give you the tools and you do the investigating to say what works for me. Right? Because we all have different needs. We all have different abilities. We all have different circumstances, right? So I'm never going to say, well, in order to take care of yourself, you need to go to the spa, right? Because for some people that actually works. And for some people, there are many barriers in place that even if they want to, they're not able to achieve that. And you have to ask yourself, with what I have and where I am in my here and now, what works for me? Environmentally, that is broad. Right? So I have to ask myself, what can I be doing to give my life meaning and purpose and help me achieve the things that I want? So now I'm going to give you some tools that you can utilize to help achieve work-life balance. We talked a lot about physical wellness, and as I shared, physical wellness looks different for everyone. It's not just about, I booked a gym session today. For some people, your ability to move your body might be limited, and so you might say, you know what, I'm going to do some breath work. You might realize that it's too hard for me to do a high intensity workout. I'm just going to go for a walk. Right? I might find that maybe walking is not suitable for me. So there's going to be something else that I engage in that helps me with my wellness, my physical wellness. When it comes to sleep, you might find that, you know what, I do sleep better during the day. And if that means that I'm more productive at night, that is how my body functions. How can I lean into radical acceptance for where I'm at with my mental health and well-being? So I want you to be thinking broadly about what it means to take care of your physical body, right? Because we all have different bodies with different capabilities and different capacities for things. And time can sometimes get in the way of us doing some of the things we want to take care of our physical wellness. And so what are the different ways that you can be restoring yourself and rejuvenating your physical well-being? When it comes to working, one of my favorite things to do is something called the Pomodoro technique. And a lot of you might be familiar with this concept. I love to keep a timer at my desk. I literally have one here right now. And it's really because our executive functioning skills gets impacted when we experience sensory overload and when we are overloaded with multiple tasks over and over and over again. The reality is the human body really is not designed to be working an 8-hour shift. So when that culture of work is going to shift, I don't know, but science already shows, studies actually already show that the average worker really only completes about 3 to 4 hours of work within that 8-hour shift. So if you are expecting your brain to have the mental state to be able to just zoom through an 8-hour day, right, with just a maybe 30-minute or 60-minute workshop, lunch, you might find yourself struggling. So how can you work on a task, set a timer for 25 minutes and give yourself breaks in between? I'm going to take a step back and I'm going to stretch. If I have the capacity to, because I'm working from home, I'm going to leave my house. I'm going to get some fresh air. I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to do something that helps to center myself before getting back into a task that might really overload me. So this is one of the things that I truly encourage you to do as a way to achieve harmony. Instead of thinking that I have to focus on a project for the next 3 hours, how can you really utilize that time to say, this is how I'm going to split my time up. I'm going to focus on this thing, but I also need to give myself a break. And what is a realistic thing that I can do to help manage my time and to help rejuvenate me? I also want us to focus on different ways you can take care of your emotional, intellectual, and social wellness. The first one is keeping track of your mood. What's important about this is understanding that I'll always ask people, how are you feeling today? And they'll say, I feel good. And good isn't an emotion, right? Sometimes it's really hard for us to get into a state of recognizing, well, what is my body carrying? How do I actually feel? Also recognizing I could wake up feeling great, but by the end of the day or even midday, I might have a shift in my mood because we're human. So sometimes it's easier for you to say, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being my worst, 10 being my best, where do I fall on that spectrum? I also want you to ask yourself, which number is the beginning point of your optimal level of functioning? For someone like me, I always say, even though I'm not feeling like a 10 today, I just need to feel like a 7 in order to function and in order to thrive. I don't always have to be excellent. I don't always have to feel like a 10 and feel extremely happy. I can feel different things. And I might find that when I'm at a 1 or when I'm at a 3, I may not function well, but when I'm at a 7, I'm pretty good. And so I want you to be reflecting and asking yourself, where does your optimal level of functioning start? And you will also say to yourself, well, if it's a 7, and right now I'm feeling like a 4, what do I need? I want you to get comfortable with asking yourself, what do I need? So that you can assess, well, I might need a boundary here. I might need a change in scenery. I might need movement. I might need nutrition. I'm hungry, right? And that's why I'm feeling like a 1 right now. I'll pause here really quickly to just ask everyone to mute themselves. If you can just take a moment to mute yourself right now. Lastly, one of the things I'm going to say is connection. Connection is a beautiful thing. And one of the things that we need to be asking ourselves is, how can I build a circle of support as a way to achieve work-life harmony? When you're working, your coworkers fall in this category, your circle of participation. These are the people, networks, or associations you participate with in life, often on a daily basis. There are people who say, I go to Mommy and Me classes every Saturday. The people there are in your circle of participation. I've worked with people who say every Friday night I have an AA meeting. Those of your people who are fit within your circle of participation. I do a hobby. I play a sport on the weekend. When you go there, that is your circle of participation. When we have a circle of participation, that is often how we start from the bottom and start to build intimacy and friendships with these people. These are the people that we're exposed to daily, where we're realizing there's a difference between friendship and connection. I have friends in my life who are my solid people. They know all my business. When they come over, who cares if the dishes are washed? Who cares if the space is clean? That's my circle of intimacy. I might find that I have acquaintances, and I might find that I have some friends, I have close friends, and I have a best friend. But the way those relationships started is because at some point, these people were my circle of participation. And so I want you to be thinking to yourself, how can I be open to connection as a way that helps me move through life and even move through work? The workplace is not a family, but the workplace is a place of community. And so your boss is not your best friend, but your boss is your community member. Your colleague is not your family member. Some of us have family members in our workplace, but in a situation where they're not, that's your community member. And so how can I be paying attention to my circle of participation and recognize that relationship falls on a spectrum? There are some people I'm super close with where they know all of me. And there are some people where I realize I'm going to draw a boundary here, because what I want to share with this person, I don't want to share with you. What I want to ask of this person, I may not ask of you. But we're building a connection here. We're building something that helps us make the foundation of a relationship and seeing where it grows from there. And when we have connection, we find ourselves thriving. So one of the things that I want you to do as you reflect after this workshop is just ask yourself, who falls in my circle of intimacy? Who falls in my circle of friendship? Who falls in my circle of participation? And who falls in my circle of exchange, which is the paid networks that I engage with regularly? These are some reflection questions that I want you to be thinking about. When it comes to your financial wellness, what are some short-term or long-term goals? How is your financial wellness impacting your mental well-being? And ask yourself, what are some solutions around here? What is your mindset around money? Because sometimes that is the stressor. How you think about money, and sometimes it's money itself. The responsibilities around money, being the main caretaker in your family, right? And so I want you to be thinking about financial wellness and think of these reflection questions to ask yourself, now that I have an understanding of where I am within my financial well-being, especially on a scale of 1 to 10, what is the solution? What is the next step? Do I need to work with a financial advisor? Do I need to seek assistance, right? Because, hey, not all of us are good with money. And so this is why you have people who went to school to learn about money. Are there free resources on YouTube, books, podcasts, things that I can be engaging to increase my financial wellness as well as literacy? Your spiritual well-being. I encourage you to do a practice called the 3 Good Things Practice daily. What are 3 good things that happened to you today? And when you think of those three good things, you want to ask yourself, why? What was the why behind it? Why was this moment meaningful? How did this moment impact my mood? And how did this moment shape my next decision, if any? And so I want you to be thinking about things that give you purpose on a daily basis, the things that help you move through the day, right? And there are going to be times where you might realize, you know what, Mina, today was just hard. And that's okay too. One of the 3 good things you realize is I acknowledged my emotional capacity. I acknowledged that today was hard. I acknowledge that I'm stressed out. And lastly, I want you to be thinking about your environment. How can you use your environment to create a reflection of your mood, a positive mood? If you want to be at a 7, 8, or 10, how can your environment play a role in that? Also, I want you to be thinking of what are some resources that you can engage in to help create a healthy environment? And how can you also engage with the environment outside of your home? And so we are wrapping up today's workshop. Thank you all so much for your participation, and also for those who shared, whether you were on the mic or in the chat. Lastly, I'm sharing my book, Owning Our Struggles, A Path to Healing and Finding Community in a Broken World, will be debuting next month on August 22nd. So you can scan this QR code to order your copy. We have about a few minutes left. And so for this moment, I am answering any questions some of you may have. Feel free to write your question in the chat, but if you're comfortable, you can also unmute yourself. Is there 1 or 2 people who might have a question?
I do have a question, Minna. Thank you so much. This was really helpful. I had a question about moral injury. Because there's this, healthcare workers, educators, lots of people have felt this. It's beyond burnout that we have been, like, we're trying to do the right thing and our work and jobs have made it impossible to do the right thing. And it crushed me. It demoralized me. I was despondent. And how does one get over even that?
Mm.
And I left my job, by the way, so I'm no longer an educator because of that. But I'm just wondering, I'm sure a lot of people here feel that.
Yeah, I think what's hard that we all have to reconcile with is that there is a system at play that we all are forced to engage with. We're forced to engage with work. Thanks to capitalism, we need money to survive in this world. And when you are part of a large organization, that some organizations have their missions and their desires, sometimes that can be conflicting with your own values and beliefs. And you might find yourself experiencing compassion fatigue, where you are overloaded by the emotional stressors of the job, especially if you are a teacher or an educator or a doctor or a mentor. You want to help people, but you find yourself feeling depleted by helping people, depleted by trauma, depleted by hearing stories of adversity, and as you share as well, depleted by the mission of the organization and the way the organization functions as well, when you realize there's a lot at play that needs to be healed and fixed and put together. I think a lot of this is I don't think there's a one-step approach to this. I think going back to purpose. When you say you love your job, what brings you there? What motivates you to be an employee? What motivates you to do this work? The next thing is, how can I use that motivation to play a role as a change maker in my organization? Is there ways that I can speak up in the workplace? Are there systems that I can challenge? Are there things that I can realize this is going to take time to move the needle, but can I be the first person who uses my voice? Can I be the first person who suggests something that's done that is done differently, right? And so I think that a lot of this goes back to purpose, and also asking yourself, sometimes when things do feel heavy, how can I just go back to reconnecting with myself? Because there's just so much at play that we can start to feel burnout and depression as a result of systemic inequities and social inequities. And we have to ask ourselves, what makes me feel liberated? For my people, for people suffering, for the things that are happening, and how can I just look inward to say, what can I do to make some sort of change, and realize that the small change is what leads to the big change. So that is what I would share. Is there one more question? We are at our end, so I just wanted to see.
Very, very quickly, I know you've got to jump, but you're an absolute gift. Thank you so much for everything that you've done. Just one thing, and I know that you can make it really quick, but a lot of this work is about understanding deeply and doing the introspection to figure out who we are. But we're up against the attention economy, with everything trying to distract us away from understanding who we are. The whole internet, Instagram, Netflix. So how do you do to tune out, to put your attention to doing this work? And then we'll let you go.
Yes, thank you, Eric. I think that's a really good question. I think there are so many different things we can do, but the first thing is we do need to tune in. We do need to be more mindful and ask ourselves, what are the things that are distracting me? Do I need to download another app on my phone, thanks to Instagram launching Threads, right? Do I need to have the Threads app? Studies show that the average American checks their phone every 3 minutes. Sometimes we have to set boundaries with ourselves, because that's what a boundary is. And we have to say, you know what, when I'm working, my phone needs to be in the bedroom, because I know I'm not getting up every 3 minutes to check my phone, right? And so one of the things I really encourage you to do is ask yourself, what are the things that's taking away your attention? And you recognize that you are not a powerless person, and your boundaries remind you of your power. And you say in this moment, I need to be introverted, I need to look inward, and I need to be able to give myself the attention I need in this moment, or I need to give my attention to something that I want to prioritize or is meaningful to me, and this particular thing is a distraction, and I need to be firm in setting that boundary. And remember, sometimes people can be boundaries too. Requests can be boundaries as well, where we're recognizing I need to draw a boundary with this person, I need to draw a boundary with my time, I need to draw a boundary with how I show up, because maybe I give too much and I need to learn how to resist urgency and pause before saying yes to something. So those are the different things that I encourage people to do. But the first thing is to look around and say, where do I feel the chaos is? Because that's going to show you, okay, there, over there, that is where I need to set the boundary. And that is going to help me look inward. So thank you, Eric, for that wonderful question. Thank you all for your wonderful questions as well as feedback in the chat. Thank you all so much. And I truly hope that you had a wonderful time with this workshop. And thank you again to Reimagine for having me.
Minaa B, thank you for your insights. Thank you for these tools. Eric, thank you for that beautiful introduction. And thanks to all of you for peppering that chat with such interesting reflections. There will be more time next week if you register for our final session in the work and life design series to participate and to be in breakout sessions. So I pasted that link in the chat. This session is going to be led by Tracy DeLuca, who is a design strategist and thinker. You'll be able to harness design, creativity, and play to cultivate resilience, both in your personal and professional lives. Come back, you'll get a recording to this session, I promise. And I hope to see you all next week. Have a great day, everybody. Take good care.